Chancellor Professor Pillai, Dean Dr. Devi, Pro Vice Chancellor Satish Mood sir, and Dr. Ketkar sir to join us for the lamp lighting ceremony. A very good morning to each and everyone present here. I welcome the Chancellor Shri Somaiya, Vice Chancellor Pillai sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Satish Mood sir, Dean Dr. Devi, and all the other dignitaries, colleagues, students, friends, to the launch of the various research initiatives of Somaiya School of Civilization Studies and the launch of Transarea Journal. Kamadhenu Guna Vidya Yakale Faladaini Pravase Matru Sadrishashi Vidya Guptam Dhanam Smritam. Learning is like a cow of desire. It, like her, yields in all seasons. Like a mother, it feeds you on your journey. Therefore, learning is a hidden treasure. And this is what we have been doing for the last 2 years, trying to build a center with a school with such ideas that began as an experiment. And we still have that with us, that like any ideas, it might go ahead, it might fall, but we are ready to take that challenge. And with that, we'll begin an informal session where we share the research activities, research projects, the vision for the center in the first half, and in the second half, we'll have a formal launch of the journal. So I welcome you all to this and thank you for being such an important part of this journey. Each of you present here have in numerous ways helped this School of Civilization be what it is as we take this leap forward.
Hello. Yeah, I hope I'm audible. So thank you, Yamini. Most of you who have been coming here for our seminars or for the various programs we've conducted over the last 1 year, you must have heard Professor Devi and other speakers about what was the genesis of this school. I mean, there could be several factors, but as Professor Devi has told us often, there was this text by Samuel Huntington about the clash of civilizations. That could be one point. But these binaries did not begin with Huntington. The East-West binary has been many centuries in the making. So one of the things we are trying to do through the School of Civilization is to recognize where we come from, what is our inheritance, what is the continuity of human civilization, and also to interrogate all the exclusions, the violence that civilizational projects are always imbued with. So in order to dialogue with the Eurocentric West, we first need the capacities for that. And as teachers, what we have often found in the classroom is the lack of knowledge texts in the languages that our students speak. So we ask them to read Marx, Freud, Foucault, but where are the texts in Marathi or Hindi? So one of the first projects that the School of Civilization began was Jnana Setu. The idea was to translate the fundamental knowledge texts into Marathi. So for this, a group of academics and translators were brought together. There were many meetings in places like Kolhapur, Pune, Mumbai. It's an ongoing project. Some of the texts that have been selected, I won't go through all of them, but there is Deschooling Society by Illich, The Interpretation of Dreams, Civilization and its Discontents, The Archaeology of Knowledge, The Dance of Shiva. These are just a few examples. So that is an ongoing project. So recently, in the month of February, 1st February, we had another such meeting right here, where the translators spoke about the progress of their projects. Okay, and on the same day in the morning, Marathi had just been accorded classical language status. So we had five scholars and authors and translators from Odia, Marathi, Kannada, Pali, who came together. These are very eminent scholars. Ranganath Pathari, the Marathi novelist. There was Dr. Pritish Acharya for Odia, Rajendra Chenni for Kannada, Vadrevu Chinna Veerabhadrudu for Telugu, and Karuna Mohite, who is here with us, for Pali. So the morning was a very interesting debate on what is the classical when we speak of classical languages. So this happened in February. Okay, so these are some of the language and literature initiatives that we have worked on over the last 1 year. And Professor Sanekar, who helms that, she will speak of about the future projects later. I'll now come to the other centers under which research is happening at the school. I'll begin with the Center for Kutch and Desert Studies because that was the first to come into inception even before the formal inauguration of the school. So, under the Center for Kutch and Desert Studies, there was a 2-day conference cum exhibition titled Weaving Stories, Traditions and Textiles, celebrating the cultural heritage of the Vankar community of Kutch. There was another program, a cultural and artisanal dialogue in Naktarana Taluka called Chakka Jam. This was a community engagement initiative. Similarly, there was a 2-day seminar and month-long exhibition on photographic and cultural documentation of Kutch. This was titled The Photographic Eye of Jyoti Bhatt. And this managed to raise 1.45 lakhs, which was given for libraries in Kutch. And the last was a roundtable discussion which happened this February on folk practices, orality, and memory studies. So this is broadly the work that the Center for Kutch Studies has carried out since March 24. I'll next speak about the Center for Asia and Area Studies. Now, here there are some projects which are ongoing. One concrete achievement is the Transarea journal, which we will be launching today. But this center began with a project called Ashiana. The idea was to get to know our neighbors, not just in Asia, but Asia, Africa, South America. If we are speaking of a non-Eurocentric world, then what are we talking about? So Nyan Setu attempts to understand, get knowledge texts into the languages, and this was a project to really understand who these peoples and nations are. Somehow that project didn't take off like we would have liked it to, but given recent events, given the turmoil on the world stage, this project seems to be especially important now. The next thing that started in the Center for Asia Studies was a roundtable called Reconceptualizing Civilization, where there were scholars from Bombay, from the Himalayan region, especially Ladakh and Uttarakhand, and from Kutch. And the deliberations that took place over a day, it was from morning till night, some of those deliberations fructified in the first issue of the Transarea journal, which is also called Reconceptualizing Civilization. The next, the other important project that the Center for Asia Studies has taken up is a project called the Makers of Mumbai, okay, for which there was a roundtable in February called Bombay Chronicles, Lives, Landmarks and Institutions. It's an ongoing project, and Gaurav will speak about it when he speaks about the center. Okay, I'll just wind up. I'm running out of time. So the Center for Himalayan Studies did a conference in Dehradun in association with the Wildlife Institute of India and Humanities Himalaya. This was a conference on negotiating heritage, identity and citizenship. Similarly, our newest center is the Center for Transoceanic Studies. They are already doing a collaborative IKS project with the Institute for Dharma Studies. And the other roundtable they did recently, it was a 2-day conference in collaboration with Darshak Itihas Nidhi and the Directorate of Archaeology and Museums, Government of Gujarat. Um, Fine. I'll wrap up. So we had several international scholars in at the end of January for consultations on a civilizational book series that Professor Devi has been working on for a while now. There was a public lecture by Dr. Sudhindra Kulkarni titled Asia's Responsibility in Shaping a Better World Order in the 21st Century. And lastly, there are the civilization seminars which started in September and which have been running every Friday. Today also there's one. That's it for the activities of the past year of the School of Civilization. I'll now hand over to Professor Bhagwat, who will speak of research projects.
Good morning. As Kavita has already discussed the various activities of the School of Civilization Studies, the approach of the school is essentially interdisciplinary and holistic. It is evident from the academic offerings of the school as well, which I think Dr. Gaurav will be speaking later. The research centers, however, form the crux of this school. As Kavita has mentioned, the initiative by Dr. Ganesh Devi about the book volumes on different aspects of civilization is planned, wherein there are scholars from different parts of the world. So just to mention the few scholars involved, Professor Hans Muller from University of Macau, China, Professor Dorian Fuller from London University, Gwen Shook from North Carolina University, and Professor Nesma Elsakan from University of Palermo, Italy. So all these scholars are involved, and there was an interaction. One was a closed meeting, one was an interaction with the general public also to brief about their projects. The Center for Asian and Area Studies has undertaken the project of Makers of Bombay, headed by Gaurav Gadgil, including the idea of studying the city, its people and institutions on the theme of documenting the role of individuals and institutions in the making of Bombay city in the 19th and 20th centuries. And I think more than 40 scholars have agreed to contribute, right? Transarea journal, we are going to have the launch after the discussion, so I will not mention it right now. The translation project Nyan Setu by Dr. Ganesh Devi has shortlisted the foundational texts about which Kavita has already spoken. These are the texts written in the foreign languages such as English, French, German and Russian. These are significant texts which have helped shape the human mind and influence the societies across the world. So basically, translating this text into Marathi will help to overcome the knowledge deficit, since it was not available for the Marathi language people. And so far 25 texts are shortlisted. She's already mentioned the writers, significant writers like Sigmund Freud, Michael Foucault, and then Isaac Newton, his Principia. That is also going to be translated into Marathi. The Center for Indian Ocean and Transoceanic Studies, headed by Chaya Goswami. Right now she has got 3 funded research projects. One is center running a Ministry of Education funded IKS Research Center. This is in collaboration with the Dharma Studies Institute. This intern-centric project is focused on the theme of maritime shipbuilding, seafaring and navigation tradition. Second project is about a mega project on the digital archives. The project is to catalog the West Asia related records in the Maharashtra State Archives and the National Archives of India, then to digitize those records for an online digital archive. Third project is a book project, Tides of Trade, Mapping Bhatia Merchant Networks in the Indian Ocean. This traces the commercial circuits of Bhatia entrepreneur with Arab Swahili traders, Hadrami financiers and navigators who formed trans-regional trade connections across the oceanic rim. It taps the circulation of goods, currencies and credit systems that sustained the economic exchanges from Muscat, Zanzibar to Bombay. So these were the projects of the center, which is recently started. In fact, Dr. Yamini Shah, who in fact was here much before all of us joined, with the Center for Kutch Studies. She has a 5-year-long longitudinal research on the educational dynamics in Kutch, along with learning enhancement through libraries of Somaiya Gujarat Trust, along with College of Education. This is funded by Somaiya Gujarat Trust. Then she also had a project wherein students were involved. There was a survey of cattle of Kutch, wherein students really had the learning with the rural setup and how people live and how cattle was an important part of their lives. Third was research on representation of visual and material cultures in varied cultural institutions in India and UK. This was with the idea to build a museum on Kutch. Besides these active projects, there is also a book publication project planned on India and the world, and also a project on theatre documentation, which I am planning, which is in the primary stage. There was a one-day seminar organized in the line of this. This was representation of Mumbai through theatre. This was held in February. Thank you.
Thank you. Now comes the time of speaking about the academic programs which will be launched by the School of Civilization Studies in the coming academic year. The School of Civilization, when it was established with a vision and an idea that it will be a research-centric school which will also teach. Hence, in the sequence of today's events, we began with the research initiatives, the projects which were there, and now we go to the teaching part, the programs that will be launched. So in the coming July of this academic year, we'll be starting with our 3 programs. The PhD program. Right now we have guides registered in 2 subjects. One is English literature and comparative literature, and the second is history. Admission process has been initiated in both these programs, and we will be possibly inducting students very soon. The second program which is there is the Master in Liberal Arts, MA Liberal Arts, which will also be beginning now, with specializations which are to be offered in the form of anthropology, history, Indian literature, world literature, and area studies. Right now, the focus of the area studies is on Asian studies, but in the future, we want to bring in more areas into the purview of area studies as well. Then the third program is the Bachelor's program in Liberal Arts. The BA Liberal Arts is a 4-year program which will come in soon, with majors in all these disciplines that we have already spoken of, that is area studies, history, Indian literature, world literature, but we'll also be having more offerings including anthropology, philosophy, political science, which will be there under the BA Liberal Arts program. Now, the way Liberal Arts program has been thought of at the undergraduate level is in the first year, we'll be introducing students to each of these disciplines with the basic question of what is. So what is history? What is politics? What is music? And so on and so forth. Trying to make it a truly liberal arts program where the student will have a lot of choice to choose from, not only the disciplines one wants to major in, but also from sciences courses will be there, music, performing arts, and so on and so forth. In the second year, the student will go into the debates part in these programs. So debates in history, debates in anthropology, debates in literature, etc. The third year will be on the theories part, and the fourth year will be the contemporary issues which are being discussed. So that is how the 4-year program will go. The objective of our programs, each one from the PhD to the undergraduate program, is to encourage critical thinking. Because in today's day and time, it is critical thinking which is the most important. And along with it, in the assessment part, we are trying to do away with the conventional form of end of semester examinations and bring in the true essence of continuous evaluations. And towards the end, we'll be having a jury-based assessment for each of the courses and for each of the students to make the entire process as fair and transparent as it can be possibly made. So these are our academic programs which we have thought about. and our research will be in line with the teaching. So the nature of courses being offered will also change as per the research initiatives and the new updating research which is taking place. Thank you.
We will now begin with the vision for each of the centers. And as India began its journey with the Indus Valley civilization, so too did the School of Civilization has its roots in Kutch. And I'm really thankful to Sameer sir for giving it this space. And I just want to take a moment to make all of us think about something. There is a person called Purnima Devi Burman. I don't know how many of you have heard about her. She's from Assam and she was the only Indian in the Time Women of the Year 2025. She's a wildlife biologist. And what she did is that she thought, what good is a thesis if the bird itself cannot be saved? So she dropped her PhD and went on to do something which is much more important for the people around her. So that is one of the things that we will be doing under Center for Kutch, because we have seen so many academics, including Professor Devi, who left their academic work at a point and started working on ground to ensure the things that they saw were real. Back, yes. Yes, sir, but there are these aporia where one has to make that really brave step. And she did work on the greater adjutant stock. And so we are working on this very, very grounded project where we ensure that the people of Kutch get what they deserve, we can give them as much as we can through our campus here, our campuses in various parts of India. So it'll be a student-led, student-run program, including interdisciplinary research. So I'm going to share how this thing came about and what the vision is. Insecurity, uncertainty, doubt. I still often hear that phrase surrounding native title discussions, and purportedly it's used in reference to economic contract. No, it's insecurity, uncertainty, and doubt about something more important than that. Much deeper about the foundations of the nation, about who belongs, about who we are. This is where the question starts. This is mentioned in The Location of Culture by Homi Bhabha. So which brings me to the fact that the imperative in this nation is to find ways to express advertently for self-assertion or for a collective assertion. This expression could happen through words, art, weaving, embroidery, or any other form. What is it then that a place needs? An epicenter from where knowledge is generated. A probable explanation can be to have knowledge stemming from it, which in this case is Kutch, and thereafter expanding in varied forms. Secondly, a humanitarian agenda that begins with a ripple effect. An underdeveloped district that strives to abstract its moot points to affect change essentially can evolve through the Center for Kutch Studies and its initiatives like there will be an extensive library project, building libraries in Kutch with the support of the Somaiya Gujarat Trust and ensuring that these libraries are run with a whole lot of enhanced vocabulary, literature, literary programs with the help of the College of Education. And we also had one project with the help of SCEL, Experiential Learning. And this will go on, and because the dream is to set up 100 libraries, and we will do it as quickly as we possibly can. So that is the tops it. Then it'll be the repository of oral history and folk literature, where we will have student-led initiatives that will do this kind of oral history research on folk literatures, on motifs, because we also have a subsidiary institution, Somaiya Kala Vidya, which works on the artisans, and we want to also document those visual and material cultures. The production of theories, novels, children books, poetry, research articles, essays, because there's a whole lot of dearth in this area where a lot of knowledge needs to be produced. The Museum of Kutch and Civilisations. Then we'll be housing books, reference materials, and archives from across the world on Kutch and the deserts. There'll be summits, conferences, seminars. Then there'll be an entire paradigm research on expression in India through the lens of Kutch, where Kutch will take center stage, and that will be done through art and literature, producing 35 volumes culminating into a theory thereafter. A volume on visual and material cultures of Kutch, which is ongoing. The research exchange of knowledges of the desert, because what we have here and what the world has seen across different deserts can then be exchanged. And connecting Kutch on a global platform based on alternative histories. There'll be translation projects so that we can get important Kutchi books into English. There'll be certificate courses which have already started being a part of the electives so that all the students within the campus and even outsiders can come and engage. So with that, I would request Professor Gaurav Gadgil to talk about Asian Studies Center.
Thank you, Yamini. The Center for Asian Studies, when it came up, it had a different idea, and then it was thought that we should expand the traditional horizons, the colonial constructs which have been there, which have been categorizing regions as South Asia, East Asia, West Asia, etc. And we thought we should broaden that idea, and Professor Devi suggested that we call it as the Center for Asian and Area Studies, wherein it is the interconnectedness of the regions, communities, and the civilizational interactions which have been happening, which need to be studied and researched upon. The Asian continent, Yamini just spoke about Indus Valley civilization as the beginning of the Indian civilization's idea. Now, if we consider all the human civilizations that have started, settled civilizations, Asia is the cradle of all these early developed human civilizations. So whether it is the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, or the Indus Valley in India, or the Wangho in China. Now, along with that, Asia is not just the cradle of human civilizations, but also perhaps the birthplace of all the important religions in the world. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Islam, and so on. So there has been a lot of dialogue, a lot of interactions which have been happening. The idea of Asia was again extremely strong, as Dr. Sudhindra Kulkarni in his public lecture had also pointed out, amongst the earlier generation of Asian leaders, not only Indian but Asian leaders. That idea of Asia and that identity of being an Asian perhaps is something that needs to be studied more deeply, but with a critical insight. So that's something that again the Center for Asian Studies will be doing, along with challenging the norms of the traditional area studies. The key objectives, if I have to talk about the center, is one is to emerge as a knowledge generator for Asian studies, from the Asian perspective. Now, educational institutions, as Professor Devi had rightly put it in one of our earlier interactions, had become knowledge processing centers instead of knowledge generating centers. So, each of the centers of the school plans to become a knowledge generator in their own fields of study and inquiry. Second is to encourage research and teaching on the themes of civilizational interactions between regions and communities, but on the principles of mutual respect and cooperation, not of clash or hostility. The third is to design a novel model of urban studies involving a collective of scholars. That is something that we are working on right now when we are trying to document the idea of makers of Bombay or Mumbai, how the city emerged, the role of individuals and institutions in the making and shaping of the city, and vice versa. One of the objectives that was there but has been realized now is the starting of a journal. The journal called as Transarea Studies or Transarea Journal. I'll talk about that later in the second half of the program, which is a more formal launch of the journal. But that's the broad idea of the Center for Asia and along with that area studies. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll speak about the Center for Himalayan and Mountain Studies. It started as just the Center for Himalayan Studies, but then Professor Devi and several scholars we consulted with said that we have to look at the connections between, say, the Himalayas and the Western Ghats, where we are located. So the challenges faced by mountain communities today are similar in many ways, though there are particularities, especially to the Himalayas when we think of civilization. So Like I said, our first conference was on negotiating heritage, identity, and citizenship. So that was a deliberate decision because these areas which seem marginal to the nation state and marginal definitely to our metropolitan lives, they are, when you travel there, you realize how central they are to our imagination, to our cultural imagination, and also to our nation making projects. So we have imagined that in future we'll bring out a series on Himalayan studies. So the first publication that would be coming out is hopefully a publication on the proceedings of the last conference, but we'll invite more scholars to contribute. In the coming year, we are also planning a student seminar and another conference, this one on endangered habitats, development, and climate change. Because in the last conference, in the collaboration with the Wildlife Institute of India, which is a UNESCO center, what we discovered is that the cultural heritage people don't talk to the natural heritage people and vice versa. Though when we speak of, the human animal interaction is one of the urgent issues today, adaptation, conflict, etc. So the next conference would be on this theme, and it would be preceded by a postgraduate students conference, because there were very good papers from PhD students in the last one. So one is this. The second would be something I forgot to mention earlier in the activities that we did last year. We took a group of students, just 3 students from ancient Indian history, culture, and archaeology, on a internship to Kargil in June, July 24. And they did their internship in the Central Asian and Kargil Artifacts Museum. It's a family-run museum in Kargil. And we could only do this because of the support extended by the Somaiya Center for Experiential Learning. So thank you, Megha, and Ashutosh, who is here. He accompanied us, and we had several discussions at the time. And all of us feel that there is nothing to beat immersive learning. So since we don't have our own students this year, there is not much we could do. But from the coming year, when we have undergraduate students and postgraduate students, we hope immersive learning in these regions would be a part of our curriculum and the way we teach. Finally, what Yamini spoke about, that we do not want to just remain in this safe academic zone. We are learning much from people who are working on the ground, whose work doesn't become known because most of them write in Urdu or Ladakhi, or there are amazing scholars. So we are also keen to organize some capacity building workshops for students and activists in Ladakh. And lastly, this semester we are offering an open elective to the engineering students. There's a course called Mountains People and Cultures. So we hope all of this can come together at some point where different institutes on campus, whether it's the B.Ed college or experiential learning, can all come together to make a very fruitful exchange, not just between students, but activists, artists, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once you work on your area of research, that is maritime, for 20 years or so, and when you get the opportunity to talk about the idea of the Center for Indian Ocean and Transoceanic Studies, this cannot be more delightful than what I actually thought of when, this is really overwhelming for me. Thank you, sir, for accepting and receiving the idea and giving me the platform. It's all about the Indian Ocean and Transoceanic Studies, where we want to act as an intellectual arbor, where histories of migrations, trade exchange, and circulations, and also of course cultural entanglements unfold across the centuries. So this is, Indian Ocean is itself is so vast and so deep, and India at the heart of the Indian Ocean has to be, at least brought in more academic endeavors and researches because of its networks, its stories, which are about Swahili merchants also, Hadrami sailors, or Bombay entrepreneurs, or even Mandvi based merchants who actually got in connections with Perso Arab financiers, and they were able to shape networks through which we revisit and retell the stories of these pilgrims, entrepreneurs. My voice is not so good today, but I'll still go on. So the idea is about how do we see the navigators, the entrepreneurs who shaped a world without frontiers, where goods, ideas, and exchange and destinies interlace across vast waters. At center, we also want to offer maritime histories to trace the echoes of Dhow. Dhows were the heart of the Indian Ocean, and in fact, they were also known as the master Asiatic trails, and the way the Dhows carried the stories, the people, the mobility, the ideas. This itself, along with Kotias of Kutch, has to be somewhere narrated, and these stories come from shipbuilding, come from seafaring traditions, and of course intellectual exchanges, ideas, and navigation. And Malam, I identify Malam as the custodian of oceanic wisdom. Recently, only we had one conference at Vadnagar Experiential Museum, where collaborating with Darshak Ityas Nidhi and the Directorate of Museums and Archaeology, Government of Gujarat, we focused on the Malam as the master navigator who knows everything. I mean, Malam, coming from the Arabic etymological origin, Malum, and from Malum becomes Malam, and then there is a community entirely shaping up from this origin of oceanic knowledge. The one who knows everything, the one who has the command over the nautical miles. He can control the entire navigational sails from by interacting with the stars, the moon, the sun. So this is the way we are looking at maritime history, not just looking at in historical, anecdotal, or archival references, going by conventional archives that these are the information. The British came, the hegemonic period, the Portuguese. No, we are looking at how maritime knowledge system evolved, and that is where I call it as Indian maritime knowledge system, because this is where these wisdoms which are there since centuries, and the communities have been interacting on this. Communities have been shaping around such kind of a dialogue between the land and the sea. Why are we not looking at that? And this is where such Malamni Pothis are a very distinct records, and this is the idea of this center. Malamni Pothi is like captain's logbook, or you can also identify it as a navigator's manual. Where not just they are having some random margin notes, but proper astral charts based upon astronomy and astrology. So there is this interplay between astrology and astronomy, and how they are looking at the life at sea, when for months together they are open to the deep oceanic engagement, where there is nothing but just water. So how they are guided? So with such study approach on mind, the center envisions itself as a leading research emporium for reimagining maritime histories, knowledge, network, and global exchange across oceanic worlds. Because I am not just looking at Indian Ocean, I want to also see transoceanic activities, which were very much integral part of network building, where Atlantic also was as much part of the story as Indian Ocean was. So it is not in solitary or isolation. We wish to have rigorous archival research, oral histories, and interdisciplinary inquiries, because I call it fragmented archives, unconventional archives, or even the archives which is quite it is so abstract that one has to form it, because for example business studies also, there are many business stories, right? So for that you have to have those archival building. Otherwise, if you do not have that repository, you won't be able to promote the interdisciplinary inquiry and also the conversations, critical conversations on the resilience of maritime legacy, to map the undercurrent and countercurrent of globalization. So for that, Indian Ocean Center is going to take some solid and constructive steps in future. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. So, yes, Pillai sir is.
No, I am not particular. I am asking questions, sir.
We can perhaps take it towards the end at a more informal level over lunch. So, good morning. Thank you so much for being a part of today's school event, which relates to the launch of 3 initiatives. One at research, the other is the academic programs, and the third part is the journal. So let's come to the more formal part of today's event that deals with the launch of the Transarea Journal of the School of Civilization Studies. The journey of the journal started about a year back. It was conceptualized within our internal discussions in the school after the Ashiana workshop was held. And later on, it was presented as an idea, something that the Center for Asian Studies of the school intends to do to the Chancellor of a university, that is Samir sir. And we are very glad that a few months later, we are up with the inaugural issue of the Transarea Journal. The Transarea Journal is envisioned as an interdisciplinary journal which aims to go beyond the traditional confines of area studies. The idea of area studies, as I just mentioned a few minutes back, is linked to the colonial constructs of political and cultural geographies, the way they were constructed. It also aims to act as a bridge between disciplines, between regions, between communities, to further the idea of cooperation and peaceful coexistence, rather than the ideas of conflict and violence which have been shaping our today's societies. So the journal is a step in that direction. I would be doing grave injustice to numerous individuals who have made this journal happen. It begins with the extraordinary support that all our initiatives, including the journal, have received from the Chancellor, that is Shri Somaiya sir, our Vice Chancellor Pillai sir, and all the stakeholders within the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. My heart says to thank Professor Devi, but I know that towards the end of the program, I'll get to listen perhaps to a minute of lecture on why it was inappropriate to do so. But nonetheless, the idea would not have been accomplished had it not been for him. In the editorial board, we have Dr. Ladan Afi, who is with the Zayed University in UAE. We have Dr. Nesma El-Sakan of the Palermo University of Italy, Dr. Jimena Cordova of the Zayed University UAE, Professor Kanchana Mahadevan, former professor and head of philosophy department, Mumbai University. She wanted to join, but she's traveling and out of town. And Professor Ganesh Devi as the director and dean of the university. We've had some fabulous contributions. This is an online journal, so we'll be releasing the link soon. This is an online journal, and we have had fantastic contributions which are linked with the journey of the School of Civilization as well. So we started with a roundtable that was held exactly a year back in the middle of March 2024 on the theme of reconceptualizing civilization. So two articles which come into this volume are directly linked to that idea of reconceptualizing civilization, which we started about a year back. One is by Dr. Lokesh Ohri, who is based in Dehradun, and the second is by Professor Kanchana Mahadevan, who is here present amongst us for the inauguration. Sorry, Kamla Ganesh, who is, Professor Kamla Ganesh, who is present amongst us. Professor Kanchana Mahadevan has also contributed an article which was linked to the Civilization seminar series, which she had delivered a month back. Other contributors include Professor Pratish Acharya from Ajmer, who contributed on Odia language and was a part of the Gyan Bhasha Vimarsh, an activity which was held in the first week of February, along with Dr. Rajendra Chenni from Karnataka, who was also a part of the same event. Professor Ganesh Devi has also contributed a research essay to this theme, because it was with his initiative that the Civilization seminars started in September, and he talked about the urban decay and civilization. So this is also a part of this inaugural volume. Riddhi Joshi has contributed a book review. She is also present here today. And thanks to Krishna Dange, who has been a sub-editor, and to the library staff who have been extremely cooperative with the ISSN procedure. We'll be having the ISSN extremely soon. Now, without much ado, I'll request the dignitaries present here to come for the official launch. I'll request our Chancellor Sir, Samir Somaiya, Vice Chancellor Professor Pillai Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Sir, please do sir, and Professor Devi and Dr. Kumar Ketkar, please come on the dais for the release. I think we can stand in the front. So. No. There's an honor.
Version of it?
This is just for
the release version.
Release version.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great job.
I request all the dignitaries to please be seated on the dais.
Idea behind this whole project.
So you can sit there. Whatever you want.
Honorable Chancellor Mr. Samir Somaiya ji, Professor Pillai, Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Mood, Pro Vice Chancellor of the University, and Shri Kumar Ketkar, one of Bombay's most eminent intellectuals, all my colleagues from other departments, other faculties. In June 2023, I was taken by Professor Pillai in his company. I went to meet Mr. Samir Somaiya in his office in Fort. Samir ji and Amrita Somaiya, they were both present there. and their idea was to bring me to this campus. Not exactly knowing what this creature will do here, but in the discussion, it was a free-flowing discussion, and I remember every word of it. We felt that we should do something for civilization. It is now about 2 years. Soon after the discussion, I received a very warm letter from this university, and I want to thank you and Professor Pillai for that letter asking me to spend time on this campus. Soon after that, I decided that if we're doing anything on the campus of the Somaiya University, we should announce it at the Asiatic Society, because Asiatic Society is where, and perhaps you were present there, Asiatic Society is where 200 years back a new kind of knowledge about Asia, which Europe did not have, started getting generated, then going to England, forming many new fields of inquiry there, which later on came to us, like our raw cotton going there and coming back to us as processed, cloth. So, 2 lectures I gave on the ideas I had at that time in my mind. And one of those 2 lectures was chaired by Shri Kumar Ketkar. And that's the reason why I have punished him today by asking him to come here, because he has to suffer for all the good and bad deeds. So that chairing my lecture, there I had said that 200 years back, Asiatic Society produced some knowledge, and Bombay, which was but a tiny place, among many other reasons, Asiatic Society became one of the reasons for making its global presence felt more strongly than merely a place of trade and exchange and so on. In further discussions with Mr. Somaiya, we felt that because India has a very great place in the world civilizations, and because India does not have any school of civilization in any university so far, we should make it a school of civilization. So the school of civilization, first the idea came, then the school of civilization started evolving. Towards that end, we felt that whoever is available on this campus, whoever is interested in research, should be involved in that. And therefore, I was looking around at various departments, and whoever felt, whoever got warmed up to the idea of research, I started inviting them and having long chats. Almost for 6 to 8 months, I did nothing but having long conversations. I was extremely lazy, doing nothing, only talking and talking. But I was carrying a burden on my shoulder, because on that evening in June 23, I had promised to the Somaiya couple that if opportunities used here, we can produce up to 300 books, which will go in the name of the Somaiya University. He has often teased me about it. And I want to this morning, I want to say that the 10 volumes on what is civilization, how they emerge and how they collapse, are actually taking shape. Scholars from Egypt and Italy, China and UK, USA and UAE and various other places, they are working on these books. And we have found one of the best publishing houses in the world to accept. Routledge, Francis Taylor, they are doing this in English. We have also got firm commitments for Tamil versions, Marathi versions, Hindi versions, and Kannada version. In not so far. I'm waiting for the Navjivan Press to warm up to it. It will happen. But I am glad to add that apart from these, I have commitments from Arabic publishers, Italian publishers, and Chinese publishers. So 8 versions of this will appear. 10 plus 80 makes it 90. 300 is a very big figure. Then we started this. We started the translation project for bridging the knowledge gap. And there, Professor Sanikar contacted so many translators and scholars. About 30 of them showed interest, and at least 20 books will come out definitely. I want to push it further and take it to about 50. Now, I mentioned there's also plans of doing various other things. In Bombay, we have to do it because of the 4 cycles of urban civilization India has gone through. First is the Harappan, which collapsed. Then there's a temple town which came up, but it became restricted. The medieval Indian town was a reflection of power, but as urban basis it did not. Now we are in the 4th phase of urban settlements in India, and practically every town has already become urbanized. But as towns are becoming cities, we all know that a lot of urban decay has already hit each of the small town as well, not just the big cities. We have to think of how to go beyond this and bring the essentials of Indian civilization into our urban civilization for creating a new model of human existence. That is the effort. Among the 30 European scholars we are translating, one is Adam Smith. Shekhar Sathe is translating. Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations exactly 300 years ago. In 1723. Next year, in June, it will be time to match Adam Smith's date of birth to release the Marathi version of The Wealth of Nations. But with that, I would like to ensure that we also work towards a new Bombay plan. There used to be a Bombay plan before independence that was only for economic development and industrial development, but a more holistic development of humans. If it comes from this campus, I think it will be wonderful. So we'll be working towards a philosophy of life, combining the artha, the moksha, the kama, all the. By that time, by June next year, at least 10 of the European philosophers will have appeared in Marathi, perhaps more. And by June next year, June 26, 10 of the civilization volumes which are getting ready, 5 will be ready. 5 will be published in English and also in Marathi, perhaps in Kannada, perhaps in Hindi. I don't know about the translations. So sometime in June next year, when the Jnanasetu book started coming out, when the civilization volumes start coming out, when this journal sees its 2nd or 3rd or 4th issue coming out, because the journal is released today, and I congratulate all my colleagues. But this is not going to be one issue miracle. It has to continue. So better issues will come out. By June next year, that is 26, the first batch of our students will have come out. And the School of Civilization will have a larger number of PhD students. That is, once the pedagogy is settled, once these books start coming out, and eventually by 2028, the number 300. I'm looking forward to that day when I can write a little later, very short letter to Samir ji, that I promise that there will be 300 books in the name of the university, and this is the 300th book. It's my moral responsibility. I will work here till June next year. I wanted to actually leave, retire, because I will complete 75th year, and I wanted to take sannyas. But my wife said that it will be you cannot enter sannyas with a moral error. You have given a promise of ensuring 300 books. You can't leave halfway through. So I'm going to after August I will reduce my involvement and only work as intellectual mentor. I will seek all the formal permissions for that as intellectual mentor and take this forward. I am extremely happy that my colleagues have shaped up. We need more of them. We need each of the colleagues to have a kind of more fire in the belly for research. Because unless there is fire in the belly for research, research does not happen because of facilities or lack of it. It cannot be stopped. It does not happen just because there is an only if one wants to do it, it can happen, and it can happen wherever, and it can happen here on this campus, and it can make this university very distinguished among the 1100 universities that exist in India today. None of those 1100 other universities, none, not even one, has a school of civilization. This is the first university, but patting ourselves on our back is not good. Is not good till we actually justify our existence by producing work that is expected of us, not because this university has given facilities, but because Bombay is the place now where there is immense possibility of showing how future civilization can be shaped, and we are at the right location. Therefore the founders of the university have the right kind of moral stake. The cultural and geographical location is the ideal, and the time is absolutely perfect. I will close by saying why this time is perfect. Over the last 100 years, internationally, we have seen the world going through some different phases. One was fascism versus democracy from Mussolini's time to the end of the Second World War and the beginning of the United Nations. Then there was the next one was Cold War. It was Russia, USSR versus USA, etc., etc. Then came yet another phase where Huntington's thesis of manufacturing clash between religions and clash between cultures became the foreign policy instrument for several nations, including America, basically America. Now humans have entered, the world has entered yet another kind of clash or war. And it is, as far as I understand, my understanding is very little, it may be erroneous. It is a clash between, on one side, the tariffs, and on the other side, the trading. Those who want the world to be connected and those who want the world to be close. Those who are in the supply line of trade, that is the makers of people, the cultivators, the processors. On the other side, those who only collecting the makhan on top of buttermilk and then assuaging the citizens to keep their control. A new kind of clash has emerged in the world. At that time, we have to provide some new thoughts. Bombay can do it. The Somaiya University can do it. The School of Civilization cannot do it alone unless it connects with the Design School, School of Aesthetics, Faculty of Language and Literature, the School of Medicine. Many fields will have to be a single spectrum. Then only we can do it. Alone we cannot do it. We may boast, but we will not succeed. So there has to be a complete spectrum of interest, and therefore it is good that the School of Civilization has only centers and not departments. Centers can bring many faculties, many people together. I'm very glad that we're seeing this morning, but I'm not completely glad. I would like to see that morning in June 26, when we have at least some of the civilization volumes, some of the translation volumes, further volume of the journal, and more larger projects, and also the intellectual makers of Bombay, that volume. By June next year, all of that must come out. And then we can start boasting about ourselves, saying, ha ha, humne kuch kiya, thoda kiya. In comparison to what you and your family have done, this is nothing, absolutely nothing. It's very minuscule, but many such drops can make a nice pool. Thank you.
Devi, and as much as we are delighted to know of the things that all of us knew it, but for all of you, the projects that will unravel over the next 1 year, we are also deeply sad that Professor Devi will be here for just one more year, because learning under him had almost become like we are students, and so we have been like his students, learning so much. It's almost like you'll miss your teacher, and I'm sure he will always be in touch with us even then. And as much as as much a challenge that Professor Devi handles and gives to the existing systems, we have an equal counterpart with Professor Pillai, who always ensured that each of the systems remained in place. He gave us enough support to ensure all our projects happened in time with everything that was required for us, be it calling him late in the evening from Kutch, sir, that, because there was a brief period when Professor Devi had not joined, and I was reporting to Professor Pillai, and he would immediately write back, even if he's at the airport about to take a flight, and he would say, and things would get done. So, with the kind of leadership that Professor Pillai has given this university, it's also another thing that Professor Pillai is also going to be here for a very short duration. So, I'm sure they have given all of us so much that we will take things forward in the spirit and in the depth of and the light of things that they have shown us. And with that, I want to invite Professor Pillai, Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidya University, to address us.
Good morning, everybody. It's a very rewarding day for the university, me and the Chancellor, and all of us. I met Professor Ganesh Devi, I think in 2007, along with Antara Sen, Amartya Sen's daughter, when in Delhi. Then we, of course, when we talked about the Adivasi Academy in Tejkat, and providing some sort of a Aboriginal education, Aboriginal quotation education for Adivasis and all that. Then I had, of course, I know about his People's Linguistic Survey of India, remarkable, contribution which he has made. That was then, I think around in 2009 or so, he invited me to be an institute in Ahmedabad. What is that?
It's called Dhirubhai Ambani
Nirma Ambani Institute, when I was heading Indira Gandhi National Open University. Of course, I used to know Professor Devi as a literary critic, professor of English for long. Then I think it was when I started the public lecture series in this university. It was you suggested his name. Of course, I used to invite names from people from my colleagues in the university to invite people, and of course she just suggested Professor Ganesh Devi. I was so thrilled because I know him very well, so he accepted the invitation and he gave a public lecture in this university I don't remember the year and all that, but it was one of the illuminating lectures. I of course know Professor Surekha Devi, Mrs. Devi, as a professor of chemistry. I have also visited her center as a professor of chemistry. I had visited, and then after the public lecture, of course, we just remained as such, and then I think in 2023 or so, he published a book, The Indians, along with Joseph and Corisset.
Yeah.
And you gave me a copy, sir. You gave me a copy of that book. And then I suggested, why don't you come to the university and think about probably the name civilization. That is Indian civilization. What is the title of the book?
It is a histories of a
Edited book. Edited book. I
Histories.
remember Joseph. I know Corisset. Of course, I do not know.
Indians.
It's called the Indians histories of a civilization.
Indian histories of a civilization. And then, of course, I asked him. I requested him to come over to Bombay and then discuss something. And then, of course, our chancellor had read him much before me, his books. And I told him that when Ganesh Devi is there, he said, I know him very well.
I didn't know him. I had read his books.
Yeah, but
I knew of it.
the books is. So then we went to him, the head office, and then that is the genesis of the School of Civilization. And the word civilization also, we jointly selected that School of Civilization. Of course, it was School of Civilisational Studies. I don't know whether you have changed it. It's School of Civilisational Studies. Let me continue. Of course, so it's a very rewarding day. Of course, we have seen the progress of this institute, progress within 2 years, the progress, the unconventional ways of academic freedom and promoting the independent initiatives of individuals. That is the hallmark of a university. That Professor Ganesh Devi has been doing, identifying people, not very many people we wanted to draw from outside or anything, identifying people in this university, people from our own colleges who has contributed, and then looking at the various disciplines which are in this university and bringing them together and making an institution, seeding an institution. Let me congratulate Professor Ganesh Devi. Thank you very much for the excellent work you have done, and I am very confident you will not go anywhere. You will be here or you will be anywhere, but you will continue to work for the School of Civilization and make it a global institution in the years to come. That's so you are not going to go anywhere. You are always there.
He said he has to take formal permissions. He said he has to take formal
Permission
permissions.
to go. So that permission should not come. Thank you. That's one thing. Of course, let me congratulate the editor of the journal, chief editor of the journal, Professor Gaurav Gadge. Of course, Professor Gaurav Gadge. Of course, I did not know him. Of course, I was also looking at the KJ Somaiya College of Arts and Commerce as provost of the institution. It is of course many of you youngsters probably newcomers to this university. You know that college is the seed of this university. It is the first higher education institution. Is that institution, and you know that we had when we tried to create this university, we had some sort of resistance that no regular teachers from university don't want to come to. From the Bombay University did not want to come to the Somaiya Vidyavigar University for reasons, for good reasons, for their own reasons. But of course, Professor Ganesh Devi could persuade him to just come to the university without any condition. Thank you very much, and congratulations for the excellent work you have been doing, and you will continue to. And then all the of course I don't want to names of all. Of course, regarding Marathi literature, we have what is that project called? Jnana Setu, no? Jnana Setu. That of course it is a very when people hear about this project, Dr. Sanekar is doing. She is also from the College of Somaiya College, sorry, Somaiya College of Arts and Commerce. And when people, of course, I used to go to government and some public functions for a number of meetings and all, small meetings. But when they hear about the Marathi promotion of Marathi literature and a project like this, they're all thrilled. They're all thrilled. For example, I have seen some of the LinkedIn responses about the Jnana Setu project. They're thrilled. Of course, I'm glad to know the progress of the project, and I definitely congratulate her. And it is also some sort of a surprise to me that many of these famous books are not translated into Marathi. Is it true, sir?
It is
Wealth of national knowledge.
not mentioned. Newton is not mentioned. Darwin is not mentioned.
Don't translate.
Not translated. I mean, not.
Max Weber.
That, of course, it's a surprise to me. Of course, I come from a different mother tongue, Malayalam, because almost all these books, all these books.
Agatha Christie is translated entire, but Newton is not.
So that's definitely it's a big culture, big language, big culture. But if we can take the credit of that, we are going to make a big revolution, literary revolution or knowledge revolution in the state of Maharashtra. That is one thing. And of course, about the Kutch studies, I am quite aware of the Kutch studies, even though I had not gone to that institution so far. I am quite aware of the Kutch studies program. The experiential learning program can be definitely part of the. Who is looking after this? You are looking. When she mentioned about the experiential learning program, thinking of whether it can be part of the university. If it cannot be part of the university, where else it can be part of experiential learning? That's very important, and we did it also. That project we did it. Kutch studies is very important. Himalayan studies, of course. When I say, of course, I was also heading the University Grants Commission for some time. Now looking after the universities in the country in a different capacity, just networking with the universities. But of course, large number of Himalayan studies programs are in the universities in this country. I do not know how. Of course, you have to just look at how we can be different. How we can be different in the Himalayan studies program. Of course, Himalayan Studies Institute, even a new generation institution known as Shivanadar University. Shivanadar University has started. Shivanadar University, in Noida, they have the government of India has provided a center for excellence on Himalayan studies. Shivanadar University in Noida, Greater Noida. So, and then of course, number of government institutes are there. Then, of course, about the maritime studies. Of course, when I hear about maritime studies, I hear about the Chennai Institute. For example, if you just see, because I have traveled, I have gone to all these maritime institutions, but they were engineering programs, that marine engineering and related programs. But there are 6 centers under the government of India. 6 centers under the government of India in maritime institute. But when you mentioned about, you had interacted with me even before your interview, when you mentioned about this particular initiative, it is different. It's totally different. It is not just as mentioned by processing of knowledge, probably it's creation of knowledge, probably identifying the hidden knowledge and then trying to bring it upstage. So, from your presentation, that's why I asked Professor Gargi whether there could be any discussion on the presentations. So all these presentations are really, really good, and they are all, of course, seeded in a different way now. And it is very important that we should retain that signature of the thing which you have all mentioned. Similarly, research centers, Kamangi mentioned about the research centers, they are all very important. And journal is very important, but I will definitely look at any journal with a little bit more precaution. Definitely, we have to be extremely careful in research journals in this country now. In our country, all over the world, the type. But you have thought about it in a very significant way. But you should not compromise on quality at any levels, because research journal publication is some sort of we are all getting fired. Universities are getting fired because of the diminishing quality of the publications which are research publications which are coming in our research journals. Therefore, we have to be extremely careful. I am very confident that the type of editorial people you have, probably we will also suggest a few more very prominent people. Who came for the public lecture from Oxford? What is his name?
Faisal Dev. Faisal Dev.
He is now, have you heard? He is now he has been elevated as the dean of the dean of the. So probably we have to just look at some of these things, and then we talk about Asia, Asiana, and transition. Of course, you heard of Sudhindra Kulkarni. He had prepared a framework, some sort of a framework for the Asian collaboration. And then when we think about area studies, I do not know whether anybody is from our international studies is here. When you think about area studies, we should also have some sort of interaction. Recently, they had a very, very good conference with World Global Affairs Department. We had organized a meeting. Maybe that department is also going to be very important. It's a very young department. How many faculty members? 2 faculty. China studies separate. So, of course, I am again with the academic agenda now, but these are very important. But this is very common in any new university. Very common. Don't say it's very common. It is for us to churn it and then bring it in the right perspective. Maybe within 3 years. Maybe 3 years. Within 3 years, you have to churn it together and bring, and then keep the identity and signature of the original objectives of the institution. You should not compromise on the original objectives which is done. Thank you very much. Congratulations to each and everyone.
Of the many things that I've learned from you is to always be an enabler, because for every project that I would take to him, he would say, I will do my best to ensure that it lands there, the other side of the bank, and it reaches fruition. So, and I think to head all these institutions, the trusts, and so many other, I would say, industries, institutions, is Shri Somaiya, the Chancellor, about whom I hear from various places, various people, and all in high regard, in great honor of the person that you are, sir, and the kind of detail that you give, even to your minutest of things. And I've also heard things people say in Kutch, like that your grandfather was Bhadra Bahu, and it's almost godlike to the things that he's done, and they see you in the same light. And even I hear from people who work here, the Safai Karmachari, that the smallest thing reaches their household, and he hasn't forgotten the kinds of things that people have been doing for this institution and for various other institutions. And to have such a person lead our university is a blessing, that that he would know each and every aspect of what you are doing, no matter you are a student of this university who's come back 10 years later, and he'll stop you at the corridor and want to know what is it that you're up to. So with that kind of leadership and with that kind of people that we have among us, it's a real privilege and honor to be working at an institution like this. And with that, I invite our Chancellor, Shri Somaiya, to address us.
Nice to have that reputation. Our Vice Chancellor, our Pro VC, Dr. Devi, Sir Dr. Ketkarji, I know him also from our bookshop. I have to say we had trouble once.
And also journalism school.
Of course, journalism school, but I had once, I had to seek help from him when our bookshop caught fire, and the insurance company was asking us to sort the burnt books in 3 piles: fully burnt, half burnt, smoked and drenched, and what was left. And I told him this is what we were getting. I didn't tell him, but our bookshop manager Jagat, when he came to know the trouble, so then he also put in a word. And there was another time when he Hindustan Times during the COVID epidemic. I don't know if you remember this very helpful man. Really, so, and to all of you who are here today for this wonderful day today to launch of this journal. He mentioned some things about some permissions that are to be required from those people somewhere. So we don't know which permissions and from whom. So I'd like to start. Yesterday we had some architects at home at dinner, and the conversation turned out about, you know, what we're doing. So I made a statement that this is in the founding of KJ Somaiya, who founded this institution and did work. So we are all carrying on his legacy. And I remember that gentleman who studied at Bharda school when he graduated with the 6th or the 7th standard. That must have been a 12, 13-year-old boy when he finished, maybe 14. And working with him as he planned the temple structure, which will come up later as a school of music and dance. But when I worked with him, and he would say all the things he would want in that structure. So of course, he felt Lakshmi Narayan was him. But amongst others, he said, I want Socrates to be there. Because he said, apostle of truth. And so I was thinking as to the kind of thought process that must have gone into his imagination. His relative lack of education and still his imagination of creating an institution which he foresaw of this size. That's why he gave the name Vidya Vihar. When people told him that, you know, you do in South Mumbai, where everybody is there, Jai Hind is there, Casey is there, Lala is there. Why are you taking this Virana and putting one building of College of Arts and Science, as it was called then? Yeah, that was the first building. Later the name changed, but it was the KJ Somaiya College of Arts and Science. But he says, no, it's a Vidya Vihar. And then later on, as he imagined what would be. And so when you think about getting a Socrates kind of thing here, it also talks about civilizations. It also talks about values that one wants as a person. By creating it, also what one wants to give back. So I think this is something that is, you know, what we're trying to take forward together. It's not anybody's doing, it is all of us doing together. And all of us play our part. Dr. Pillai enables, also our job is to enable, our job also as trustees is to set guardrails so that we also protect the institution and as we take it into the future. I was on a flight yesterday coming back from Europe, and there was a gentleman next to me. He was one of the big tech company guys. There are only a few big tech company guys, not the guys, but one of those companies headquartered in California. So I talked to him about how the prevalence of these tech companies has reduced reading. And echo chambers is what we are in, and reading has really declined. Conversation started, he agreed. He said, yes, in fact, there are no libraries anymore in the neighborhood he lives in Mumbai, and no bookshops either. And so when we talk about urban decay, decay also starts with the complete absence of reading. Because if you stop reading, you close your mind, or certainly you don't open it anymore. And if you don't open it, obviously things go wrong. So I think there's a lot we need to do on this campus or in this world to help encourage reading. I think it is important. I keep saying, by doing this, सोच बढ़ा रहे हैं, पेशा तो सिखा ही रहे हैं, और चरित्र भी बढ़ाएं. So how will you do it unless you do this? So I would. So therefore, when we are also trying to work in libraries, I just made a statement, 100 libraries. I think it caught Yamini's attention. Just to tell you, our third one building completed this week, and so hopefully we'll get books to fill it up. But our third library, Dr. Pillai in Kutch, the work got completed last week. I just got the person. No, this is new. So I have also not seen the pictures, but
it is going to be done. But I'm just saying, so this is what we're doing. But and therefore the College of Education is working on an immersive program to teach a literacy reading program. Great literature, nobody to read. And then I had a young intern from the College of Education who went there, who told me, wonderful all you are doing, but do you know that the kids in the 7th standard cannot even write their names in Gujarati? So what is the use of giving this great lit? So that's not the answer, but that was wonderful to be told to my face what the other realities are. So it's also good to see the mirror to know what work we have to do. But this is a dream of creating a university which is multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, which has depth, which talks about sustenance, preservation, and growth and dreaming as we go forward. I'd just like to say that we want to be something in university that wants to be very experiential, along with depth. Work we're doing in Karnataka and regenerative farming, like what we talked about in Kala Vidya, which is in other work. Interesting conversation, sir, in Aboriginal discussions that you talked about in prior learning. I was talking to a person from who's done a lot of work in the Gond community in Madhya Pradesh last week, and she talked about various shamanic rituals and whether they ought to be studied at all. To which I confessed to her, because I'm a rationalist and often have such thinking about whether, in Hindi or Gujarati they say, Mata Avi, या उनमें आपको पता होगा नहीं होगा. But I don't know if you know these things where you get into a different state of subconscious. And I of course told her that in Kutch there is this ceremony called the Shastri Part, which is done in Kutch villages, which is done which is done at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And I myself had an experience such as this. Where you get into a different phase, altered state, and I was fully aware that I was in such a state. And I was also very aware of people asking me questions as if I were somebody else, and I was of course in a state of great confusion, because on the one hand I was joking to myself as Samir, that you ask anything and they'll give it to you because they think you're somebody else. At the same time, I was also very confused that why is my body doing stuff that I'm not asking it to do. And then of course, so it's an experience, and I do think that such things need to be studied as experiences, because these are different things. So I think when you do Himalayan studies, these things are there. When I hike a lot in the mountains, there's a different reality in those mountains as you live. So you don't know which is the reality of the internet world or that other kind of logging in world that you have. So I don't know. I think university is a great place to explore the real, the imagined, and I just would love that your journal also be in multilingual. You encourage people to write in the languages that they. You can always have the translation. So if somebody wants to write in Gujarati, let it be written in Gujarati with an English translation. So then, otherwise, how will you spread these ideas into the wider community? That's just my thought. So congratulations on a great day. I kind of rambled on. But I think it's a place that we want to create a very exciting community, as Dr. Pillai said, a place of great inquiry. Open inquiry, and to create, as I say, the world into a more beautiful place.
This day, because this is Jyotiba Phule's birth anniversary. Yes.
खूप अनौपचारिक पद्धतीने आपण या सगळ्या कार्यक्रमामध्ये बोलतोय. मी आमंत्रित करते आहे कुमार केतकर सरांना, ज्याच्या या सुंदर सोहळ्याचे साक्षीदार आणि इथे आहेत. आम्हाला खूप आनंद आहे. सर, आपण आपलं मनोगत व्यक्त करावं.
Frankly, I am an odd man out. I am not academic. I am a journalist, but you are the owner, founder of the institution, so you belong to different category. I am a journalist for last nearly 50 years, and as you know, journalists know everything. So naturally, I am superior to all academics. So my association with this place goes back to late 80s or early 90s when the School of Journalism started here. And I was a teacher here as a guest lecturer, but regular. Almost every week, 2 lectures I used to give. Yeah. So my association with this institution is quite old in that sense. My association with Ganesh Devi is that of a great guru, and I am at his feet. Generally, I don't like to be at anybody's feet, but with Ganesh Devi, it's a different thing. Then here Kamala Ganesh is there. I was a part of the sociology department under Professor A.R. Desai and D. Narayan. And in fact, the question of civilizational studies I got introduced to in that department when the discussions used to take place. And the kind of civilization studies went later on. When I became a journalist later on, after university, I came across the Oxford University Press, which was celebrating its 500th year in 1979. So they published a booklet on 1479 and 1979. And for that event, the top boss, I don't know who, director, dean, or whoever, from Oxford University had come. At that time, I got first introduced to the civilization studies, because when I went to England in Cambridge and Oxford, not to study but to visit, more as a journalist, I came to know about so many studies that were taking place in the university called Afro-Asian studies and civilizational studies in those universities. So I was just wondering casually that why such studies are not there in India. If they are studying Afro-Asian studies and if we are not, then there must be something missing. That feeling which I had without proper articulation, when I met Ganesh Devi ji a few years ago in Baroda and realized that there is so much to be done and very little or hardly anything is being done. For instance, I was thinking about Yuan Sang. I don't know how you pronounce Yuan Sang. He came all the way crossing Himalayas, no transport facilities, no planes, no trains, no roads, no cars, no approach to any technology, no telephones, no fax, no internet. He comes all the way from there and visits a university here, sits here, discusses here. He doesn't know the language. And from here he picks up the knowledge of Buddha's teachings and then goes, after some months or years, learning the language as well as the philosophy. And then I find that the philosophy was spread everywhere except India. Buddhism was in China, in Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos. It was in Japan. It was in Vietnam. It is not in India. From here he took it, and it is not here. And Nalanda University's name was so much known. Even Takshashila is known. I don't know what is happening in Takshashila University. Are there any lectures or studies going on? At that time, I realized enormously how poor we are in terms of understanding the global civilizations and the civilization studies. Particularly now, as Ganesh Devi correctly said, that we are in very troubled times, living in troubled times. In some universities in America, there was good work being done on this subject. And today, Donald Trump has stopped funding of any such research which he considers redundant, including in Princeton, where Einstein was there. Even in that institute, in that university, the funding has been stopped. So we are actually have entered a phase of decivilization, and therefore it is extremely necessary that we revive the culture of civilization. I'm sure Donald Trump will not be back again 3 years from now, and so civilization studies will survive. Last point, I congratulate Somaiya ji and Ganesh Devi and Pillai ji and all your people and all people here enormously, because I think if this civilization studies, which is the only one in India, takes place, its status as it should be and will exist, is that it can replace the legacy and the status and the culture of Nalanda University. And so your name, sir, will be, in the civilization of the world, that in India, this approach was taken by somebody called Somaiya. And therefore, I think from that point of view, I congratulate you for taking this initiative. I congratulate Ganesh Devi. I should not be merely congratulating because I am the pupil, the worst pupil perhaps, or good pupil. And therefore, with these words, I was not expected to speak. I think I was not even expected to be here, but Professor Gargi asked me to come. Ganesh Devi's suggestion, I consider it as Adesh. So I followed his Adesh and came. So congrats again to all of you for doing absolutely grand and historic work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kitkar sir, for your observations and best wishes. अनौपचारिक आभार प्रदर्शन असं नाही म्हणणार, ऋण किंवा स्नेह व्यक्त करणं करायची तर माझ्या भाषेतच बोलायला पाहिजे. पिल्लाई सर सुरुवातीला नेहमी मराठी समजायचं नाही, पण पिल्लाई सरांना पण आता ते समजतं आणि ते म्हणतात की मला कळलं. सर तुम्हाला पण मराठी कळतं, यू अंडरस्टँड मराठी ना, तुम्हाला तर बोलता पण येतं खूप सुंदर. मी पिल्लाई सरांचं म्हणते त्यामुळे येस. मगाशी उल्लेख केला समीर सरांनी, वीराना असा शब्द त्यांनी वापरला की आमचे करमसी बाप्पा ज्यांनी या संबंध स्टेशन म्हणजे जे वीराना असं होतं, आणि मुद्दाम मी तो सुंदर शब्द वापरायचा, तो वेगळ्या रेफरन्समध्ये असला तरी उर्दू किंवा याच्यामध्ये आशियाना हा जो अर्थ आहे, तर एका वीराना अशा जागेला आशियाना बनवण्याचं काम आमच्या पद्मभूषण करमसी बापांनी केलं. आणि त्यांनी केव्हा रुजवली स्वप्न माहिती नाहीत, पण आमच्या समीर सरांच्या मनामध्ये जी स्वप्न रुजली त्यामुळे एक स्वप्नद्रष्टा असा माणूस आपल्याला पाहायला मिळतोय, ज्यांनी कॉर्नेल विद्यापीठामध्ये शिक्षण पूर्ण केलं, परंतु आपल्या सोमय्या संकुलामध्ये काय असायला हवं आणि कशा पद्धतीने त्याचा विस्तार व्हायला हवा याची अतिशय संवेदनशील जाण ही सरांना आहे. आणि त्यांच्या भाषणामधूनच तो उल्लेखसुद्धा झाला की त्यामुळे जर्नल किंवा अनेक विषयांवर बोलत असताना बहुभाषिक असावा हा त्याचा मुद्दा, हा नेहमी ते अधोरेखित करतात. सर आज तुम्ही इथे आहात, आम्हाला अतिशय आनंद होतोय. आणि मुख्य म्हणजे प्रयोग करण्याचं स्वातंत्र्य ज्या वेळेला लागतं तेव्हा काय पद्धतीने ते प्रयोग साकार होतात याचं अत्यंत सुंदर उदाहरण आपण सगळे आज पाहतोय. आणि तसे प्रयोग करण्याचं स्वातंत्र्य तुम्ही दिलं त्याबद्दल आम्ही आपले ऋणी आहोत. पिल्लाई सर म्हणजे चैतन्य, उत्साह याचं खळाळत मूर्तिमंत प्रतीक आहे आणि त्यामुळे ते चिरतरुणच आहेत असं मला नेहमी वाटतं. आणि तो उत्साह, ते चैतन्य नेहमी ते टिकवून ठेवून आमच्या मागे उभे असतात. सर तुमच्याबद्दलचं अथांग प्रेम आम्ही व्यक्त करतो. आमचे प्रो व्हाईस चान्सलर मोद सर अत्यंत समंजस असं व्यक्तिमत्व आहे आणि अनेक वेगवेगळ्या पैलूंनी त्यांचा अभ्यास असतो, अतिशय प्रगाढ असा व्यासंग असतो. मोद सर तुम्ही या कार्यक्रमाला उपस्थित आहात, मी तुमच्याबद्दलचा स्नेह व्यक्त करते. त्याचबरोबरीने आत्ता समोर ज्या सगळ्या प्रेक्षकांमध्ये कमला गणेश मॅडम आहेत, ज्या आमच्या वेगवेगळ्या कार्यक्रमांच्या सेमिनार्सच्या निमित्ताने नेहमी उपस्थित राहत असतात, मी आपल्याबद्दलचं ऋण व्यक्त करते. उपस्थित या सबंध सोमय्या विद्यापीठाचे डीन वेगवेगळे, काही उल्लेख
म्हणजे अभय सरदेसाई तर इथून दिसत आहेतच मला, पण आजच्या कार्यक्रमासाठीच असं नाही, पण एकूणच स्कूल ऑफ सिव्हिलायझेशनसाठी ज्यांनी नेहमी उभे राहिलेले आहेत. मी आवर्जून उल्लेख करीन नारायण खेडकर सरांचा, ज्यांनी नेहमी आपल्याला प्रोत्साहन दिलेलं आहे. आणि त्याचप्रमाणे आमचे अन्य डीन रजिस्ट्रार सर गिलके सर आणि रजिस्ट्रार सरांचं कार्यालय जे नेहमी आम्हाला साथ सोबत करत असतं, त्यांचा उल्लेख करते. PR डिपार्टमेंट, आमचा जो PR विभाग आहे, आशिष तांबे सर नेहमी कोणताही कार्यक्रम असू दे स्कूल ऑफ सिव्हिलायझेशनचा आपण नेहमी आमच्या सोबत असतात. आपल्या टीमचे बद्दल ऋण व्यक्त करते. वेबसाईट जी आहे ती वेबसाईटची टीम, फिरोजा आणि टीम या सगळ्यांबद्दलचा स्नेह व्यक्त करते. ॲडमिशन टीम, त्याचबरोबर आमचं एक्सपिरियन्शियल लर्निंगची काळजी घेणाऱ्या मेघा मॅडम इथे आहेत, आपल्याबद्दलचं प्रेम व्यक्त करते. वेगवेगळ्या महाविद्यालयांमधून विविध प्राध्यापक आहेत, मान्यवर उपप्राचार्य आहेत, आपल्या KJ सोमय्या कॉलेज असेल किंवा अन्य महाविद्यालय असतील, त्याचप्रमाणे आमच्या विद्यापीठाचे, या सगळ्यांबद्दलचा स्नेह व्यक्त करते. तसंच विभाग प्रमुख, आमच्या विद्यापीठामधले वेगवेगळ्या प्राध्यापक वर्ग, शिक्षकेतर कर्मचारी वर्ग, ध्वनी व्यवस्था पाहणारे आणि आजची सगळी जबाबदारी सांभाळणारा कर्मचारी वर्ग, त्यांच्याबद्दलचं प्रेम व्यक्त करते. आणि चौकटीच्या पलीकडे जाऊन स्वतंत्रपणे अभिव्यक्ती करण्याची नेहमीच आम्हा सगळ्यांना प्रेरणा देणारे आमचे गणेश देवी सर, की ज्यांनी एक प्रत्येक वेळेला स्वतःला प्रश्न विचारायला शिकवलं आणि त्याचबरोबरीने ठरलेल्या चौकटी मोडायचं स्वातंत्र्य दिलं. मी त्यांच्याबद्दलचा अथांग स्नेह या निमित्ताने व्यक्त करते आहे. आणि त्याचबरोबर ज्याला एक आपण आजच्या या संबंध समाजाचा मानवी सिव्हिलायझेशनचा एक संबंध इतिहास बघितला तर त्याला अनेक पैलू आहेत आणि त्या ज्याला आपण हर मकाम पर रुकना आणि मागे वळून पाहणं असं म्हणतो, तर ते पाहणं या सगळ्या दीर्घ प्रवासातलं जे माणसाचं असायला पाहिजे, त्या पाहण्याची खूप चांगली दृष्टी विकसित या स्कूल ऑफ सिव्हिलायझेशनच्या माध्यमातून देवी सर करतात. आणि ते सगळे पैलू समजून घेण्याचा असा जो एक आंतरिक प्रवास आहे, त्या प्रवासामध्ये तुम्ही सगळे सहभागी आहात. काही उल्लेख राहून गेले तर तुम्ही मला नक्की क्षमा कराल. ग्रंथालय, इथे ग्रंथालयाचे सगळे सोबती आहेत, सुरेखा मॅडम आहेत, जे आमच्या प्रत्येक कार्यक्रमाला आम्हाला प्रोत्साहन देतात. सगळ्यांच्या बद्दलचं प्रेम व्यक्त करते आहे. आणि त्याचबरोबर ज्ञानाची आस असलेला समाज निर्माण करणं, याकरता प्रयत्नशील राहणं आणि त्याकरता ज्ञाननिर्मिती करत राहणं, या दृष्टीने प्रयत्न करण्यासाठी आपल्या सगळ्यांनाच आपण एकमेकांना शुभेच्छा देऊया. आणि इथेच थांबते. धन्यवाद. आमच्या सोमय्या स्कूल ऑफ सिव्हिलायझेशनच्या माझ्या सगळ्या सहकाऱ्यांच्या वतीने मी प्रातिनिधिक स्वरूपात सगळ्यांबद्दलचं प्रेम आणि ऋण व्यक्त केलेले आहेत. यानंतर भोजनाची व्यवस्था आहे. मला असं वाटतं दुसऱ्या मजल्यावर आपल्याला सगळ्यांना जायचंय. तर 201 मध्ये आपल्या सगळ्यांना जायचंय. कृपया आपण सगळ्यांनी तिथे उपस्थित राहावं.